for Joe and the staff that we have similar grasses so that he can treat them in a similar way.
Yeah, I think that that's a fair assessment. You know, I don't know that there has been any discussion to stray away from Bimini. You know, so, you know, again, all of those discussions have yet to happen. You know, it's not that hasn't been, you know, banted about you just casually at the moment. You know, other people have asked that same question, but, you know, right now, I don't know that there's any move away from Bimini.
Yeah, Mr. Grove, there would have to be a real good reason to move away from it. We haven't seen that yet. So.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Joe,
thank you, Bill.
Is Joe there?
Thank you, Bill, because you know you're the one selected that Bimini.
You did.
Jason, it's Tom Cash again. If I could just make you know, to your comment about the South Course, you know, in my experience, having been at Quail Ridge for, I don't know, 13 years, you know, I used to like the North Course better than the South Course. And then when we redid the South Course, I like the South Course better than the North Course. And so I'm also in that camp that thinks that it came out really well. I think that when I've talked to other members who don't enjoy it, I think the issue is not really from tee to green. The issue is really the greens themselves and the way they slope off of, you know, the greens are hard to hold, and that it's very easy for the ball to run off either to the side or off the back of the green. And the pot bunkers are nobody's favorite. So I think that as you're thinking about what are the issues that typically come to fore, I think those are some things that might be worth having in the back of your mind. And I think that as we have the two courses, you know, having two courses that are different but equally challenging, I think is a worthy objective for us to have, so that it's not just the same thing as what on both the courses. So those are some thoughts for you.
Yep, agreed. And I have heard that quite a lot, you know, and it's like to understand that too. You know, having the bunkers separated so far from the green surface, you know, by and large, you know, it's better players aren't missing it that far, you know, and so you're getting into with higher handicap golfers, you know, even including myself, you know, you're getting into those situations where you have 40-yard bunker shots. Those are very difficult, you know, for most players. Joe, were you you came off mute? I didn't know if you wanted to add something.
Hey, Jason. No, I was just I was coming off mute, but Bill answered that pretty well. That about 55% of our budget goes to labor, and as far as the greens, greens take about 40% of our chemical and fertilizer budget. And I'm not sure how else entailed that question was.
Well, if labor if labor is 55% and we're not replacing the sand, all we're doing is trimming and raking them, would the traps be the most expensive part of maintenance? Because every time it rains, we have to go do the traps. And it looks like to me on the South Coast, I live on the South Coast, that every day we're doing the traps, and we know that there's actually nobody been in them. So,
well, as far as the maintenance dollars that are committed to labor, as far as labor is concerned, bunkers are as labor intensive as greens maintenance. Yes.
They're virtually the same.
Yes.
The other thing, and why is that? It's because of the pitch, the design pitch of the way all the bunkers are designed with high faces, and that's what gets knocked off when you have a rain or a drain. The faces start collapsing. So you're going and doing that. So if you eliminate some of those faces, right away you're going to save some money on maintenance. And on those high faces, you can't get your machine up into it.
Yes, bunker design does dictate how much labor goes into repair after a storm and also general maintenance of it.
And what type of consideration are we doing for the North Course on that?
That's
We're-
not yet been determined, has it, Jason?
No, not at all.
Do we have any target goals of if we are going to save some water in our watering? Do we have a target goal? We're going to save 10%, 15%, 20% of our watering? Of our fertilizer? And maintenance?
Well, that'll be dictated by the turf area that we have after construction.
And how many square acres or square yards do we have in total that we're going to cover? 150?
Right now, the North Course entails about 96 acres of
96?
maintained turf.
Okay.
That does not include the lakes or the bunkers.
Or car
That's
park,
just maintained turf.
just maintains it. And how much water does it need per year to maintain an acre?
It varies year to year based on rainfall and weather conditions. And it's also tied into the north, the POA, everything north of Woolbright is combined. So it's hard to tell you the exact number on that.
And how much in design can we save on washout, on fertilizer we put it down in the morning and the afternoon, we get a big rain, it washes away. How much can we save on fertilizer?
You're not. You're not. You're at the mercy of Mother Nature there.
But in design, can't we stop it so it doesn't leave us so quick?
So it doesn't what so quick?
So the water doesn't come off the course so quick, come off the fairways and so forth into our ponds?
So
No,
that's an interesting thing. So if your concern is water quality of the ponds, you as homeowners have far more control over it than the golf course does. So everybody keep in mind, Joe's college trained professional, everybody on his staff, are trained. If you put down pesticides, you have to actually have a license, you have to be a licensed pesticide applicator. You have to take professional classes, take tests. All of those lakes that you have on the golf course, you think that they're nice and they're beautiful and that they were there for the golf. That couldn't be further from the truth. What happens in Florida is, many places, when you have a development like that, what they do prior to the development is that an engineer and the permit agencies go and they figure out when it rains and you get heavy rain, that water then is on site and then it leaves someplace off site. They essentially estimate how fast and how much water is leaving that site after a big rain.
My question is
the
not
development.
about the
the
water that's leaving. My question is about the fertilizer that we just spread. How fast is that
I'm
leaving?
getting to that. So what happens is that when it rains, so when they do an estimation of all of the rooftops and the driveways and all the rest of it, that water then can't leave your property, not your house property, but your entire development property faster post-development than it did pre-development, which means then that all of your yards, your rooftop, your driveways, everybody on this call, all that water goes directly into the ponds. Well, so Joe's got a very specific budget. He's college trained in putting down fertilizers and pesticides, but all of you can go to Home Depot and buy whatever you want and put whatever you want out on your lawn. Or, if you end up hiring a service to come out, how many of you actually know how many times and what they're putting out on your yard? All of that goes directly into the ponds.
I might bring some clarity to this. The fertilizer and chemical budget in golf course maintenance is around $200,000 a year. So if you have a 5% impact from washouts or something like that, you're talking like $10,000.
Well, that's a
I'm not
great
sure
answer.
it's something that would be a
That's-
driver to the design of the course. You're gonna still, at the end of the day, be in that neighborhood of spending $200,000 a year between chemicals and fertilizers, because he's got 96 acres to take care of.
Yeah.
So it still have to, we're not gonna be shrinking the land.
Yeah, your mix may change between herbicides, fungicides, and fertilizers, but that's what you're gonna spend, and the size of the property is not gonna change, and so and unless he's gonna go up there and put a whole lot of screening areas and not have grass, which I think we've heard so far that most of you don't want a whole lot of screening areas up there, then you're gonna have about the same cost.
That's a great answer. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, unless you want more of number 9, that's exactly right, Bill.
And there's other costs.
But I also wanted to make sure from an environmental standpoint that everybody knew that too, because I've heard a lot of that over the past 2-3 weeks, about condition and quality of the water in the pond. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody understands that the golf course is a very small player. It is a player, but a very small player in what the water quality of those lakes are. What other, I'm curious also too, folks, about practice facilities. So, good, bad, and different. I've heard lots and lots. Some people are sort of indifferent about it, but I've heard lots of strong opinions and comments, over the practice range, over the short game facility. I can tell you what I've heard, but I'd like to hear from you first.
Yeah, and so here I think what Jason's looking for is your feedback on the short game area, the current driving range facility, the putting green area, and we can even include the what we call no man's land, which is the land behind number 9 green south and number 1 tee south that has some future developable opportunity to it. So as part of this project, we have a master planner engaged that ultimately will coordinate with Jason and his team about the flow behind the clubhouse, whether we need more cart parking, whether we need more bike parking, whether we need more private golf cart parking, if we're going to do a turn house, a south turn house, where it might be, how all that works together. So this would be a really good time to hear all of your thoughts around the short game, the driving range, the putting green, what you've seen at other places you might like, or how you like what we currently have.
I think, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Bob Stevenson, we're limited on space as far as any more in the practice area. I don't see how we can do much more with our practice area unless you take out maybe the lake behind on the north side of the practice area and enlarge that area. But I think probably what we did when we did the south course is probably as good as we're going to get. I think our short game area is pretty good, and I love our practice green. I just don't know what more we could do with that limitation in land space.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of our job, obviously, is to show you what you can do, and there are opportunities that are there. In terms of lengthening the range, making the tee space, bigger. There are definite opportunities that are there. The pond on the north end is one consideration. The pond on the south, I'll give you, for example, the pond on the south end is also, and the waterfall are also considerations. I do know that that's really important to some people. But the reason why we do these sorts of meetings is that, in the previous 5 or so that we've done, people have said, we really like, don't touch the waterfall or don't touch the stream.
Right.
And I start to ask why, so why is that so important? Is it the stream and the waterfall specifically? And people will come back and say, well, no, it's when we go to dinner, we like to have a pretty view.
Right.
So is it the waterfall and the stream which are important, or is it the pretty view which is important? Because we can give you a very pretty view, not necessarily maybe move the waterfall or move the stream or do something equally as dramatic or even more so, but then obtain space for the practice facility. And that's really, so we start to drive down in some of those details. Is the stream important or is it the view that's important? you know, by and large, not everybody, but by and large, most people said, well, we wanted to have a really nice view from dinner. You know, it's not necessarily the stream or the pond.
Nice view.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
Jason, it's Tom Cash again. I'm sorry to jump in repetitively here, but the you know, if we could lengthen the range, I think that would be excellent for a segment of the membership. I think, to me, our short game facilities need. I would like to see an improvement in the short game facilities. I think, you know, they're fine to one extent, but they get a tremendous amount of traffic there, and that's an area that I personally need a lot more work on. And so if there's a way to expand it, you know, with more grass, because the grass does get chewed up very much near the chipping range, and so I would welcome any expansion of the short game facilities that would be possible.
So one of the comments that I've heard, thank you for that. One of the comments I've heard, you know, about the practice short game area, by and large, people like the location of it. They like the general size of it. A lot of comments that I've heard, you guys can tell me if you agree or not, is that, you know, now it's not reflective of anything that's out on the South Golf Course. So, you know, I don't have that style of shot per se, you know, or the pot bunker shot. You know, there are a lot of unique short game area shots, you know, that are on the South Course that I can't practice on the short game area. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I think one of the things is with the you know, with the, if you just think about the chipping area, there's you know, the area right adjacent to the starter shack there. I mean, that gets a tremendous amount of utilization. I mean, there's and it's a short chip. The whole green is kind of tilted to some extent. It's hard to see exactly how a normal shot would play out on a flatter green. The other side of the of that area, everything is over a hazard, over the bunkers. And you know, we do have those kind of shots that we have to have, but it's not a very receptive green for those kind of shots either. You know, for when you have the pitching area, that's a wonderful facility for you know, 50 to 90 yard shots, but it's then you can't really use it for anything else. I mean, in a sense, if somebody wants to hit a longer shot, then having all those bunkers and that sort of thing really isn't in the play. And so having some sort of expansion of the capabilities, I would really love to see from my standpoint. And whether they mimic the South Course or they mimic the kind of shots that in general we see on both golf courses, I think with a little more variety as opposed to something that's always kind of running away from you would be desirable.
Everybody else?
This is Bob Legori. On this whole issue, first of all, on the pot bunkers, I don't want to have practice areas for pot bunkers. I want to see you do away with the pot bunkers. That's my sense of them.
I agree with that.
And then we don't have to worry about practicing getting out of pot bunkers.
Pot bunkers.
They don't make too much sense to me.
But the alternative is not to get in them.
Yeah, you're right. But unfortunately, if I do get in them, and if the alternative is not to get in them, the easiest way not to get in them is not to have them. Then we don't have to worry about that. I agree with Tom's comments on that short game area where we're hitting shots that are anywhere from 50 to 80, 90 yards. You almost can do that on the driving range if you want to. And I don't see a lot of usage of that area. And my sense would be to agree with Tom, if we could expand a bit, take away from that a bit and expand the real short game where we chip onto to that green, because that gets a lot of use and maybe that would be a good move. With respect to that open area, that's sort of no man's land at the moment, that's been talked about. My own sense is that I think we need a halfway house there. I think we waste time trying to go to the bathrooms when we come off the 9th. And, or we waste time trying to get a coffee or something. And I know that was, the intent there was to try to save some money and use the clubhouse, but I don't think it works too well. And I do, and I do feel that the view from the clubhouse out is critically important. It's just about as important as playing golf.
What do you say?
So I'm not saying don't eliminate, I personally don't think you should eliminate the waterfall and the little pond, but if you've got a better design, I'm willing to think about it. But I do think that's a primary issue.
I agree with you fully, Bob.
Thank you.
Bill.
I think that we
Yeah.
can lengthen the driving range just by taking the tees where our mats are and moving them back closer to where the putting green is. You can probably get 20 yards, 25 yards there. And then do something at the flatlands and so forth in front of it. Redesign that if you wanted to redesign.
Yeah, why not put,
Jason, go ahead.
why not put the mats at the back of the practice tee? I mean, I don't see the sense in where the mats are right now.
It's a lot cheaper to do that than move that pond.
Bill,
Well, so,
Bill,
I can-
didn't we try to move the waterfall once before and we have a logistic problem and also a litigation problem if we try to get rid of the waterfall?
Well, we've certainly got some challenges on it, but because of half of Partridge drains into that. There's 3 inlets that drain into it and 2 outlets that drain out of it. Anything can be done. It's just going to take some money, but I think we got to give Jason the opportunity to see what he's talking about here. But you've got to balance that with the amount of space that you might pick up. I've said all along that I thought that was a beauty feature. It's why we designed the clubhouse to focus on it. But his statement of being able to replace it with something equal or better resonates. And so we've got to at least be willing to look, I think. But we certainly, that is such a critical feature to that outdoor dining area that we don't want to take away from it. While I've got the floor, I will just tell you there's a chat question in here that says the practice chipping green shouldn't be sloped away from the range, make it difficult to determine the accuracy of your shots, meaning the way that we've got those kind of 2-sided greens on the driving range right now. There's some thought that those need to be flattened out so you can see where your ball lands. And then it also says the south course should have a 9th green. A halfway house at the 9th green as well. And no man's land.
Bill, I thought the money that was donated to us to build the waterfall was from a trust honoring a person or a past member, and we had a little bit of a litigation problem if we try to get rid of it.
I don't know that it would be a litigation problem as much as it would be a hurt feelings political issue that we need to navigate. So.
So a couple of comments, folks, so for one, it's very common about a halfway house. People told me that it's, greatly inconvenient and it slows things down if people have to run into the clubhouse to grab, something to drink or use the restroom. So again, that's been a very common comment. As far as, I don't even know if it's so much the waterfall as it may be the pond, but again, I don't know that anybody's talking about getting rid of anything. I think you're talking about more so moving it. And I don't know yet, part of our job is to the different cost points, and then with, benefits and drawbacks to it. We don't know yet. What we do know is that we've got a length of range issue. Yes, move the practice mats, to the back. I think that's a legitimate point of view. Lots of people have said that. I noticed that, very early on. But I will also tell you that, from a safety perspective, and I don't know, is Dan on the call today? I don't know, is Dan here? But I can tell you that, but I can tell you that on our last meeting, somebody had mentioned and said, the length of the range isn't that big of an issue. And he said, no, sir, that's not true. When Denise is back there giving lessons, she literally calls to the pro shop every day when somebody's flying golf balls onto the back tee every day. And, all it's going to take is one person to get hit one time, whether it's a person or employee. And, you're going to find yourself in a bigger world of hurt. So I think that is a legitimate safety issue that needs to be discussed. The target greens, we've also heard that, the shaping of them. I think one or two folks here have been about having that 50 to 100 yard shot, that could be easily range. I agree. Most ranges now are incorporating some sort of wedge range feature, where it may be in increments of every, 25 yards, starting 25 all the way up to, 150, just specific for wedge practice. So those are all great comments, so those are, that's been, know that you're in the majority with all of that.
Is it possible to, on the left, if you're on the practice tee closest to the clubhouse, and to the left there's still a lot of property over on the left there, with trees and stuff. I mean, could you utilize some of that property? And also, can the lake behind the practice tee also be made smaller or something, so you could lengthen that?
Yeah, how about the people who live there?
I mean, I'm talking, that's the question.
Just raise the practice tee 3 or 4 feet, and they won't be able to get up that hill, that incline. I practice there in the wintertime every day. Nobody hits the tee in the air. They hit in front of it and run up a ball. And where Denise is running her lessons is the shortest part of the range. If she goes to the left-hand side of the range, no ball ever comes to that side.
Yeah.
If you want to just raise it up high, don't change the pond, just raise it up higher. Nobody's going to get up on that elevation. And you can walk that back bush line and see how many balls get in there, and rarely you find a ball back there. So it's not a major problem that balls are going up there. Just get it higher. Put a higher facing. We know we can't run balls up the face.
Can I just, it's Bob LaGuardia. One comment about that no man's land area. I just thought about it. Would it make any sense to consider moving the starter shack there if we're going to build something else with it? Because, I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but it's closer to the cart barn. It's closer to where the carts are. It certainly starts you off on 1 south now. And I don't know if that is something that's worth considering, but I just throw it out there.
I think all worth considering. So a couple of things. One of which is that somebody brought up left side range. There is an opportunity there to expand the range to the left to get it wider. That's something that Dana and I noticed actually the very first time that we were at the golf facility. So yes, there again, it all comes down to cost benefit ratio, but there is an opportunity that's there. Land, I think that we look at moving the halfway house there. I think that's one possibility. I think that and a combination of potentially expanding cart staging area and then giving a more formalized area for bike parking. I also think that another opportunity may be to move the putting green there and make a much larger putting green, and to do something more intricate for your dining area. So all of that is fair game. Again, I don't know what it yields. We won't know until we get into it. But those are all very good comments. They're all very valid, and they will be explored.
Yeah, Mr. Ligori, if I can just jump in and just say to you that, we talked about that internally about the potential of putting the starter shack over there with maybe a turn shack. And I think at least for now, we've come to the conclusion that more likely, none of us think it belongs in the middle of the road where it's at now, that it certainly is a traffic hazard where it's at now with everybody gathering around it. But it could go to the right over there in the very corner of the short game area, kind of behind 18 green. And the thought process being there is you can see 10T south, you can see 1T north, you can see both finishing holes coming in there. And so for Rob or whoever the starter is to be able to measure our pace of play, that's the perfect location for him to be located.
Hey, Bill. Bill, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Bill, this is Carl Sanfilippo. One of the questions I saw you post some time ago was, what kind of golf course do our members want? Do we want just a relatively flat, somewhat simple golf course? Or are we really looking for a championship golf course that will tax, let's say, a state amateur or senior amateur tournament? That kind of course probably mandates some elevation of greens, some deeper bunkers. So I think that's still kind of a key question as to what do we really want. A few years ago, Pete Dye redid one of our courses, and he said, if I build a nice golf course for the members, he said, eventually they'll be it. But if I build the toughest SOB, everybody wants to come and play it. So I guess my question is, what do we really want?
Well, I think what you're referring to is that question, or some form of that question is in the survey. And Jason, you can help me out here, but I think there was some question to that in the survey, and we'll see what what the response is here as his team begins to dissect the survey. His team has the survey results and will be dissecting them all the ways that they can there. Jason, your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Mr. Sanfilippo. So, it is, as far as elevation is concerned, I will tell you that anytime you have an opportunity to build elevation into the golf course, so much the better. I know from spending, a certain amount of time on the course already with Dana, going around, that there are some opportunities to do that without impeding anybody's view from their home lots, which is obviously critical. But that doesn't necessarily make it more difficult. What it does do is it certainly makes it more interesting. So, it's flat Florida golf courses are a dime a dozen. Golf courses that have elevation change, and even if it's 8, 9, 10, 12 feet, uphill, downhill, side hill, where you have to judge distance, that's another skill set. It's also another really interesting aspect, to our sport. So obviously it takes some money to do that, when you're starting from flat terrain, but there is a chance to do that there. Part of that is that, we can show that and figure out what it costs to do that. And then we just give you the information, and ultimately that's a club decision. I have brought that up into other venues, but I've also heard then from older members saying, don't you dare do that because it's going to be more difficult to walk. that's debatable. You know, I don't know that we can build that type of elevation change into it, you know, that it's going to, you know, make it that much more difficult to walk. But, you know, I bring that up because, again, there are varying viewpoints with it. You know, as far as making it a really tough SOB, that does sound like Pete, but that also distinctly reminds me of what you have on the South Golf Course right now, too. You know, I think that we have to be careful to make something complementary, but, you know, not necessarily as demanding for a high handicap. I think it's really important to point out, too, you know, that part of what we do as designers, you know, is that we have to obviously critically understand what is difficult for, you know, a low handicap player versus a high handicap player. And in, you know, many instances, it's drastically different, right? So if you have front, for example, you know, unless the greens are absolutely rock hard on the South Golf Course, if you have a fronting bunker, meaning that it cuts off part of the front of the green, and you've got a pin right behind it, brutally difficult for a high handicap golfer. If your greens are fairly receptive, you know, for a better golfer, they take that bunker completely out of play, figure out, you know, they're going to hit it 2 or 3 yards past the pin and draw it back to the pin. It's an easy shot, right? So, you know, again, it's frankly, you know, a lot of better players would rather hit it in your pot bunkers so long as they're not up against the lip, because they can spin it out of the sand and have the ultimate control. Whereas, you know, the vast majority of the comments today so far is that those pot bunkers are a nightmare. Well, you know, that's true, you know, unless you're a low handicap golfer. You know, so that's, I think that, again, when I talk about being fun, I think that also means challenging for better players, but playable for everybody, you know, but playable for everybody else. And that's the key of really building a really good golf course, that when you can satisfy everybody, that's when you know it's really, really good.
Hey, Jason, we have a hand raised from Miss Brunel. So, Miss Brunel, would you go next?
Yeah,
please?
just a quick question, and I'm glad we're addressing this. What percentage of our golfers are in such a low index category that, you know, hitting a 20-yard shot and pulling it back 16 yards to the pin? I mean, you know, that seems like a wonderful idea, and I'm not sure that's the profile of our course, though. I know there are definitely some players that can do that, but you know, we have to think long term, I think, about attracting people, and I'm talking couples and individuals, into the course that allow them to play something that you can play as a couple. And man, Jason, if you can figure out how to do both, that would be amazing. And maybe there's a pin placement for the women or the higher handicappers, and another pin placement for the lower handicappers. But I mean, you know, what we've done on the South has made it particularly difficult. I mean, I'm not a horrible golfer, but I'm not an A golfer. And, you know, I want to go out and have fun. And when I'm in a bunker, every time I go for the pin, I'm like, wow, this is not fun. So, I mean, what percentage of our population actually wants target golf?
Oh, I don't know that there's anybody that wants target golf. I don't even think your better players would want target golf. You know, I mean, it's as far as who took the survey, which is, you know, we've got the vast majority of your members did. You know, we'll have a better understanding of what the percentage, and Dan might already know that, of what the percentage of even, you know, when I say low, I'm talking 2 or 3 and plus, you know, or up to 10 handicap, and then 10, we can slice and dice all that data. So, you know, we can identify all of that. But again, I don't think anybody wants target golf. I don't think anybody wants, you know, exorbitantly, you know, difficult course. I think it should just be fun and entertaining for everybody. You know, and your point is very well taken. My point about, you know, the fronting bunkers is something that, you know, for me, instead of cutting off an entire front of a green, you know, it's okay if you cut off, you know, a third of it, but you have to give an alternate path around it for everybody else. You know, and I think that that's ultimately the types of things we're going to be looking to do.
Basis of golf is risk and reward. You hit the right shot, you should be rewarded, not penalized. And that's going to be incorporated in. The greens have to be receptive to those shots. Not everybody's coming in from 150 yards. Some people are coming in from 60 and 70 yards. So the way the green accepts that club is very important. So you've got to have a way in.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the biggest frustration with my wife is certain holes, no matter what happens, she can't get to that green because she can't either hit it up to that elevation or she can't hit it over the water, and there's no way around it.
Ay, ay, ay.
So I think that it's worth pointing out, which I did to most other groups and I failed to do here, but again, understand that, I grew up playing golf when I was very young, was introduced to, by my father, and so my family is a huge golfing family. My cousin is Rocco Mediate, who plays on tour, but I have plenty of family members who are affectionately horrific. So I think they play more of croquet than they do of golf. But we have a family reunion every year. Everybody goes out, plays golf, and has a great. And that's really important, And so I've had, my wife and my kids, they were young, introduced. My in-laws took up the game when they were in their 60s, and so that was very important for them to get around and be able to learn. And I will tell you, a few short weeks ago, because of COVID, I haven't seen, my parents who are older, I haven't seen them and, hadn't seen them in quite a long time. I had a chance to play with my father, who is 80 years old, and put his arm around me. And he said, he goes, I can't hit the ball but 140 yards anymore. He says, but remember this when you're out doing your design work. And he said, the experience that we're sharing today is all about golf. This is as important, as any, U.S. Open that, course that you're going to host. And, and he's right. And those are lessons that Dana and I both take to heart. And so all of you, I hope you feel comfortable. You should understand that, is that it's not just about, the elite level player. I mean, everybody should be able to get out on that golf course and have fun.
Well said.
I know that we're about an hour and 15 minutes, so I'm be respectful of everybody's time. But certainly happy to, if anybody's got more comments or questions.
Jason, it's Bob Ligori. We had to do this by Zoom because of what happened with the hurricane and everything, but I'm in Rhode Island, in Westerly, Rhode Island, and I've played Shelter Harbor. And I'm not a great golfer. I'm not even a good golfer. Larry Casey will tell you that. But I had fun playing Shelter Harbor, and I know it's your design, your firm's design, and it incorporates a lot of the things that you were talking about with respect to elevations and so forth. It's not easy, but it is fun. Good job there.
Thank you. Yep, thank you.
Yes, I don't know if I can be heard or not. It's Richard Dunn.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And I would just like to comment on the oft mentioned waterfall. I would be very careful to do a specific survey on the lake and the waterfall before removing them. I think you should perhaps look at the alternatives to satisfying the need for long distance shots. We do not have, in my opinion, very many, not counting our summer members, people who can hit it through the range. I think there are a number of alternatives. One of which I don't know that it works or not is the utilization of the gold tee on number 1 south, number 10 south, excuse me. The number's been changed. So I think on a limited basis, you could perhaps get some availability there. There are other solutions that someone could come up with, but I would do a very specific survey of that critical view that we have. That's number 1. Number 2, I think we do need a turn house. I think I agree. I think it was Bob Ligori who urged that. And we just redid the driving range. So we obviously have to do a better job and get input from our members. All right. Who is our membership? Look at the survey that you took. and see precisely who answered that survey, what their level of golf is. I don't know that we have more than 8 players that could go out on this wonderful golf course that we have and break 74 2 days in a row from the gold markers. Okay, maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't. So, not counting our summer members, of course. And then number 3, I thought, Jason, that I was at the first meeting, the very first meeting that you had, and a presentation, a design presentation on number 4 North was made, and it involved moving the keys to the right. It just seems like that and the waterfall are needless expenses. We want improvements without having to do all of this for some reason that no one understands. That's the end of my comments, and I thank you very much. I also have heard and seen some of the work your firm's done, and I'm encouraged to what you might do for us. Thank you.
Yeah. Ian, how you doing? I'm on a Quail Ridge call. Take care.
Yeah, number 4, I think a lot of people here latching on to this, this idea of number 4. I have no idea what's going to transpire with number 4. We were asked as part of the interview process to give a specific design brief, of ideas, I think to vet our creativity and skill solving, abilities. And so again, that was way before we weren't even hired then, right? That was just a problem solving exercise as part of the interview. Anything?
Jason, thank you.
Yep, go ahead,
Thank you
Bill.
for taking the time today. Ladies and gentlemen on the call, last call for questions. If not, we hope you were able to have a cocktail while you were joining us this evening. It was happy hour after all. I'm still on the water, but it won't be long. So, thank you so much. We ended up getting the 51 attendance tonight, which is probably better than we would have done had we made the trip. So, so thank you very much for being on the call, and it was a good way to wrap up this series, I think. So, any final questions? If not, we'll say good night to everyone. Well, good deal. Then we will say good night to everyone. Mr. Smith, I just saw you jump in. Nice to see you. So, everyone have a great evening, and we hope to see you here soon. Okay? Take care.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Jay. Nice work.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Somebody tried to call me.